Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
Chair, may we interpose with an application for postponement to be brought on behalf of Mr. Jonas, who is represented by Advocate du Plessis, and Advocate Norman will handle the matter on behalf of the legal team.
Thank you. Mr. du Plessis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to interrupt the evidence of Ms. Hogan to bring the application. Chair, if I might just introduce the application by saying that Mr. Jonas is clearly committed to the work of the Commission. He previously testified on the 24th of August, and he certainly wishes to complete his testimony and to face cross-examination. But exceptional circumstances have required him to request this postponement, and he does so on account of his ongoing work, as you will have known, as the Special Envoy on Investment. As the affidavit shows, which has been filed on his behalf, there are effectively 3 points we wish to highlight, and we do so briefly. First of all, Mr. Jonas's difficulty with the potential date of 14 November was raised immediately by him when he had heard that this was a problem. Secondly, through his legal team, he sought to raise his concerns in meetings and correspondence, and he did so as he thought best with his lawyers, attempting to approach informally the Commission's legal team. And then on the 2nd of November, when it became clear that he had to bring an application for condonation, then he immediately did so. That application was brought on the 6th of November, and on the 11th of November, the final letter confirmed that the hearing would be today, and I'm here today, briefed on his behalf. We would submit that those exceptional circumstances assist in understanding his difficulty. In October, Mr. Jonas followed up with the evidence leaders, and he informed them that it was likely that he would be asked, he was informed rather that it was likely that he would be asked to appear on the 14th of November. The date hadn't yet been confirmed then, but it was a possibility. And already at that time, on the 17th of October, Mr. Jonas indicated that he didn't have his diary with him, but he mentioned that he had several pre-arranged overseas commitments during November. This is the point that immediately he realized there might be a problem. He indicated that to the Commission. The next day, he flew to Copenhagen on the 18th of October, and while he was abroad, his legal team then received the letter which confirmed that he would be requested to appear on the 14th of November, and a further letter which indicated that there was a summons for him to appear. And immediately after his return from Copenhagen, his affidavit shows that he then instructed his legal team to highlight that he had two particular concerns with that date. The first concern was that he was scheduled to attend meetings as a special envoy for investment in Norway during the week of 5 November. And his second concern was that the further meetings which he'd anticipated might in fact be scheduled for Russia, those dates had been confirmed, and it was possible, in other words, that he would not be able to be in two places at the same time. His legal team then, on the 24th of October onwards, sought to engage with various members of the Commission, and those, as I've said, were informal approaches, and they were in an attempt to ensure that the scheduling issue, such as it now had arisen, could be resolved. And a letter was eventually sent by the legal firm Buchanan Burns requesting a postponement. That was on the 30th of October. That letter was sent and is at MHJ1 in the papers. And a letter by return from Mr. Mabunda was given the next day on the 31st of October, and it said that we're not able to grant the postponement on the basis of the discussions that we've had to date. There were then further efforts by Mr. Jonas's legal team leading up until the 2nd of November, again to try and see if there was an informal way in which the scheduling issue could be resolved. And when on the 2nd of November it was made clear to that legal team on behalf of Mr. Jonas that no, indeed, a formal application would have to be brought, it was then prepared and it was launched on the 6th of November. And as I say, I was instructed to appear here on short notice in order to do honor to the indication that on the 13th of November application had to be made. And so in the circumstances, we respectfully submit that there are grounds made out for the exceptional circumstances for Mr. Jonas's absence, his inability to appear here. He simply cannot be in two places at the same time. His work before the Commission as a witness, he understands is a vitally important role. He wants to fulfill it properly. But at the same time, he is unfortunately dedicated to be part of meetings abroad. Those meetings are important in the interests of the country. Those meetings are similarly, unfortunately, with very many other role players. And they engage questions which, at the end of the day, are in the interests of the Republic more broadly. And so he asks for a date for him to appear before this Commission shortly after his return. He returns from Europe on the 19th of November, and he asks for a date shortly thereafter, which will allow him sufficient time to obviously settle back in and have the opportunity to prepare for the hearing. In those circumstances, yes, sorry, Chair.
Yes, well, Mr. Jonas, to the best of my knowledge, has really been in the past helpful to the Commission, has been cooperative, and I would therefore be inclined to assist him. I must, however, refer to the fact that while on the one hand one appreciates the commitments of witnesses who may be required to appear before the Commission to give evidence, and the fact that those commitments might make it difficult for them to appear before the Commission at a time when the Commission requires them to do so. While one appreciates that and the fact that people have got lives to run, and some of the commitments relate to, in regard to some of the witnesses, to the country, one must balance that against the challenge that would arise if the only way the Commission would run would be on the basis that every witness must appear before the Commission on a date that suits him or her. So because then we won't finish within the time that we have in mind. So one needs to try and strike a balance. And when I postponed the hearing of the evidence of Mr. Gordon, Minister Gordon, last time when he was scheduled to appear before we took the break, and I had to postpone it because his statement had not reached the legal team, and implicated persons would still need to be given time to look at it and see what rights they needed to exercise. I did raise the issue that I hoped that in his case he would be able to appear before the Commission this week, because I fixed then the date of 15th November, and I did say that I hope that he would try to honor that date and only ask for a postponement if really there were very compelling reasons. Of course, he has since asked for a shifting of that date for reasons that I accepted, and I've shifted the date for his appearance before the Commission to Monday, the 19th of November. But already you can see that the unavailability of people, of witnesses and maybe ministers might create problems without one making any suggestion that they are not making the best effort to make themselves available. So I'm just going to reiterate my appeal, and I intend it for even those who are not here, but who might be required to appear before the Commission, that everyone should try the best they can to appear during the dates, on the dates that the Commission allocates, and only really when there are really compelling reasons should they try to get other dates. But because otherwise we just won't be able to function. And that's why in a court of law, once you have got the subpoena, whatever you are doing, it doesn't matter how important your engagement is, your obligation is to appear in court or otherwise approach the court to get another date arranged. So there are those concerns, and but I'm happy that from what you say, it seems that Mr. Jonas' attitude is any date that we can schedule him for after he has returned, giving him enough time to prepare for the hearing should be fine, you know, and that is helpful. I will hear what Mr. Mokoena, I think I was told he's the one who will deal with it on the basis or on behalf of the Legal Commission or whoever it is. Understand that they are not opposing, but I think it would be good if we could fix that date today.
We agree.
And to the extent that the issue of the actual date might not have been discussed between the two legal teams, maybe we can just arrange so that later on, after Mr. Mokoena has said what he may have to say, when we adjourn, we could return to the matter, and then the date can be specified if at all possible. So I will be inclined to grant it, but I would prefer that when I grant the application for a postponement, we fix the date.
Not sine die, Judge.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Norman, I
hijacked this one. Thank you, Chair.
I attempted to make you Mr. Mokoena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We agree with the sentiments that the Chairman has expressed. In fact, those are very clear in the correspondence that's attached to the application, that the legal team has no powers whatsoever to change dates for any witness. And that must be done by the chairperson, because the chairperson has given directives and has scheduled those dates. So to the extent then that at least Mr. Jonas has realized that he needed to actually bring a formal application, then the legal team is not opposing the application. And Mr. Chairman, a date has been fixed, we've already plotted it subject to the chairperson's directive, that he should come back on the 26th of November.
Yes.
And we have established, my learned friend would confirm that they had communicated with him, and he has confirmed that he is indeed available on that day.
Yes.
And may then the chairperson adjourn the matter to the 26th, and that then Mr. Jonas be directed to appear before the Commission at 10 o'clock on the 26th of November.
Yes. I didn't ask Mr. Du Plessis, but I should have asked him whether we shouldn't I shouldn't set aside the summons that is calling him to appear. Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, the 14th.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
I think it should be set aside.
Yes.
The application doesn't say anything about it, so
Yes.
it should have dealt with that, because if it's not set aside,
then it remains.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And
all right, we seem to have lost that transmission there. Perhaps we'll go to a break. Should we go to a break? We're going to go to a break.
table, and I've never received any submissions to say whether they are happy with those allocations or they are asking for more. So I think I had indicated a provisional allocation, but I had specifically said, invited the lawyers for implicated persons to indicate, to give me their submissions, because the Commission's legal team had made their submissions, but I had never received submissions from them. I got an impression at some stage that everybody seemed to accept those, but I don't have confirmation that that is so.
Confirmation. We'll look into that, Mr. Chairman. What we could do is, I think we will be able to accommodate, if Mr. Jonas doesn't complete his cross-examination on the 26th, we'll look into making provision for the 27th.
Mr. Du Plessis has nodded that he would be available until
also
he
on
has
the
finished.
27th.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's the normal rule.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Until he's released.
Yeah, okay, all right. Unless there's something else you want to say about this, and unless Mr. Du Plessis has anything further to say, I'm ready to make the order.
And as Chairperson pleases.
Okay, all right. Mr. Du Plessis, nothing. Mr. Jonas has brought an application for the postponement of his evidence that was scheduled for tomorrow, and the legal team for the Commission and Mr. Jonas' legal team have reached an agreement with regard to the date when he must appear. I am satisfied that I should grant the postponement. However, it is also necessary to set aside the summons that had been issued requiring him to appear before the Commission tomorrow. The order that I make, therefore, is the following. 1, the summons issued against Mr. Jonas for him to appear before the Commission tomorrow is hereby set aside. 2, the hearing of Mr. Jonas' evidence is postponed from tomorrow to 26 November 2018. 3, Mr. Jonas will remain available for the hearing of his evidence beyond the 26th of November to the extent that it may be necessary. That is the order. Thank you. Mr. Mkwena.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Hogan, just before the lunch adjournment, we were just about to deal with the issues relating to SAFCOL. You were still laying the basis, and you were at the point where you wanted to also refer us to one of the annexures, if you may capture that. But, Mr. Chair, before Ms. Hogan does that, during the lunch adjournment, I did the homework which was required to do.
Yes.
Pertaining to whether we might have missed some of the recordings as a result of what transpired just shortly after we've resumed. I was informed that we might have actually lost 4 seconds of the evidence of Ms. Hogan, and I had to look also at the recording. To listen at the recording, it would appear that what was not recorded was her responses in relation to page 17, paragraph 73 and 74. And you'll recall, Mr. Chair, that is those which dealt with the meeting of ESCOM where the ex-president was saying that Mr. Kotzel must stop with the announcement. I'm not sure how to deal with it, whether she must read those paragraphs into the record or she must recount her evidence on that score.
Well, you could ask her the question, or you can ask her to read what is in her statement, as long as you believe that whatever we missed gets covered.
Yes. Ms. Hogan, just for completeness, In relation to paragraph 73 and 74, you were telling the chair about the meeting which was arranged by the chairperson of ESCOM, and while that meeting was just about to commence, you also received a telephone call from the ex-president. Am I